Hello and welcome back. This is the first video out of 6 videos I'm about to post on social anxiety, and I want to be discussing a bunch of topics such as social anxiety versus shyness versus introversion, a list of all the social situations that might cause anxiety, what therapy might look like, a model of how social anxiety works, something that a therapist might create during a therapy session, ways to cope with social anxiety, and how therapy changed me, not just in regards to social anxiety, but also as a human being in general, and the way I deal with people and relationships. As always, I need to stress that I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist. All of this is based on my own experience as someone who has been struggling with social anxiety for the past 15 years. At least, I think. And yeah, I went to about 50 therapy sessions. So all of this is based on my experience and on my research. So please don't ask me to do something similar about a different mental disorder, because as I've said many times before, I do not suffer from any other mental disorder than social anxiety. So I simply cannot speak about something I don't really know in detail because I have not experienced it. I want this series to be helpful. There will be a lot to learn, but I really wouldn't want this to be a replacement to therapy. I would really prefer if you actually went to a specialist and, got properly diagnosed. Okay, so now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, we can finally move on. Social anxiety, shyness, and introversion. If I was to put these on a spectrum, then here would be someone who experiences no to very mild anxiety or shyness. Here is someone who experiences shyness, and here would be someone who suffers from social anxiety. But you have to remember that it's still a spectrum, so the severity of anxiety might vary. Introversion is completely someplace else, and it's different than all of the above, but all of these definitely may mix. Most of the time, people with social anxiety are both introverts and consider themselves shy. However, there are some exceptions. So you could have someone who considers himself to be an extrovert, but he or she would have social anxiety. And you could also have someone who suffers from social anxiety but does not consider him or herself shy. I know that both of these sound counterintuitive, but these actually happen a lot more often than you might think. And now I want to go into detail about the differences between social anxiety, shyness, and introversion. The first difference is that social anxiety results in a highly impaired quality of life, while shyness doesn't really affect you that much. When you're just shy, you might experience some anxiety from time to time, but it will never stop you from engaging in various activities. Social anxiety will. As an example, I got an opportunity to work on a short film abroad. So basically, nice script, a well-paid job, a dream come true, but I instantly said no because of my social anxiety. 1, I was terrified of working on a real film set with professionals watching me, and 2, I was terrified of having to use English. So to sum up, even if it's a dream come true, social anxiety will stop you from doing it because you will be terrified of all the ways things might go wrong. Another example, I really wanted to try exercising at the gym, but I've avoided it for many, many years. And basically I was just scared that I would make an idiot out of myself. I wouldn't know how to use equipment and so on. And only after a year of therapy and with the help of a personal trainer, I finally found the courage to go. And the last example, with social anxiety, you will not go out on a date with someone you fancy, even if they are the ones who ask you out. So you know that they actually wanna go out with you. And with shyness, you might be a little bit nervous beforehand, but all in all, you will be very excited to go out with your crush and have some fun. Now, these are just a few examples. People with severe social anxiety might actually avoid all social situations. So again, to sum up, with social anxiety, you won't just feel anxious in various situations, but you will avoid them altogether or endure them with intense distress. Difference number 2. The anxiety you feel with shyness usually goes away after you expose yourself a couple of times to a specific situation, a stressor, or if you get used to someone. With social phobia, anxiety persists even if you are continuously exposed to a feared social situation. Difference number 3. Social anxiety gives you a lot more physical symptoms than shyness does. So all the sweating, all the blushing, feeling lightheaded, a blank mind, tremors, shaking, heart rate going up, thoughts racing, and so on and so on. With shyness, you might blush a little bit, you might have a mild stomachache, but you generally won't have any difficulties with forming and releasing thoughts. Difference number 4. Shyness happens occasionally and social anxiety is an everyday struggle. Difference number 5. Shy people are generally not that scared of making a mistake. They are simply a little bit self-conscious and, they are just worried about what others might think of them. Social anxiety, on the other hand, is caused by a very specific set of underlying issues. People with social anxiety are terrified of any form of judgment. They are terrified of making a mistake, so they have to be perfect all the time. If they do something wrong, they assume that people will just remember it for eternity and laugh until they die. They are scared of eating in public places, they are scared of typing in front of someone. So basically, the other difference here is that while shyness is generally only happens when you have to have a conversation with someone, social anxiety can occur even if you don't really have to interact with anyone. Difference number 6. People with social anxiety overanalyze everything they do. They overanalyze what might happen before a social event, and they overanalyze what happened during the event after it ends. So basically, they will start thinking about every single word that left their mouths. They might sometimes spend a whole night thinking about what they could have said differently in a conversation, during a conversation that took place 3 years ago. And shy people don't usually do this. Shyness is more of a in the moment thing. And difference number 7, so the last thing that comes to mind, is probably the amount of planning a socially anxious human does. So I used to plan everything. I would plan how a simple conversation might go at a restaurant, all the different ways, all the different things that the waiter might ask me. I planned what to say, I planned where to go, and if I had to make a phone call, if I really had to make a phone call, I would write everything I wanted to say down in full sentences, which is insane. I know, but there's more. When something did not go according to plan and someone would ask me a question I was not prepared for, I would fully panic and I just didn't know what to say. With shyness, you might get a little bit nervous before an upcoming event, but you won't plan it with such detail. You'll just head out and tackle things as you go, and even if you do plan, with shyness, all of the planning will help reduce the anxiety. And with social anxiety, no matter how much you plan, no matter how detailed a conversation might be in your head, it does not reduce the anxiety. Now, moving on to social anxiety versus introversion. And to explain the differences here, I will use the party example. If you're just an introvert, you choose to stay at home at a smaller party with your friends because that's a preference. You're not scared of judgment. If you have social anxiety, you might not necessarily be an introvert, but you will still choose the smaller home party surrounded by your friends because you will be scared of judgment, and it's not really a preference. And again, if you're just an introvert, you will choose to leave a party because you want to leave it, because you're tired of human interaction and you need to go home and refuel. Now, when you're socially anxious, you will choose to leave the party because you're terrified, you're scared of human interaction, not just tired of it. With introversion, you often don't speak up in front of others because, again, it's a preference. You would rather sit back and just listen and chill. But if you actually want to join the convo, nothing will stop you from doing it. With social anxiety, you never speak up because the fear of saying something stupid holds you back. To sum up, with introversion, you don't really have any negative thought patterns. There is no overthinking. And with social anxiety, there are plenty of those. Introversion is a character trait. It's something you're born with. Social anxiety, on the other hand, is made. It's made through upbringing, through traumatic events, through cognitive distortions, and very often through a life of avoidance, where you avoid social situations, you don't really put yourself out there, and the social anxiety monster seems to be a little bit scarier than it actually is, because you have no experience in tackling social situations. To end this video, I want to describe what's it like to be a shy, socially anxious introvert, a deadly mix, because I feel like not many people understand how we work. These people never talk first. They don't talk much, even with their friends. When they don't get a reply, they instantly judge themselves and they instantly back out because they don't want to be a burden, even to their friends. They generally prefer to listen and they get tired when they are around people for too long. They enjoy being alone, but as I've said before, alone can turn into lonely pretty fast. On the other hand, if they truly feel comfortable around someone, they will open up, but only to a certain extent, because unfortunately it turns out that most people don't really listen. They just wait for their turn to speak, so they don't really see the point of sharing anything because the conversation would be one-sided anyway. They let people in very rarely, but when the wall finally comes down, they are totally different than what they seem at first glance. Unfortunately, they usually come off as quiet, rude, or uninterested, but that's not who they really are. They wear all the good stuff on the inside, and it takes a lot of time to open up to someone. And most times, in the end, they never fully do, because not many people have the patience to fight through the initial apparent coldness. Which is sad, by the way, because socially anxious introverts lead incredibly rich and interesting inner lives, and the world is missing out on all that honey, since it's not well suited for those who bloom slow. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I'm pretty sure I didn't really cover the whole topic, so if there's anything you'd like to add, feel free to do it in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!